Hello, I'm Frank, and I'm not here to sell you anything or tell you what I personally accomplished, because honestly, my story doesn't matter. What matters is what you're about to hear from thousands of people who've already made the leap into retirement. Real people, people who've lived it long enough to know what actually works and what doesn't. Today, we're going to talk about something most financial advisors won't mention: the gap between what retirement looks like on a spreadsheet and what it actually feels like when you're living it. So, if you're approaching retirement or you're already there trying to figure it out, stick around. Let's start with the hardest truth no one wants to hear. You've probably spent the last 40 years thinking about money: how much you need, how much you'll have, how much you're saving. But there's something nobody talks about at the water cooler, and it's this: time is the real finite resource. You see, researchers have discovered something fascinating about the human experience. Around age 64, give or take a few years depending on your health, something shifts. That's when the average person starts dealing with chronic disease or disability. It's called the healthy life expectancy cutoff, and it's roughly between 63.9 and 66.1 years old. Now, I'm not telling you this to depress you. I'm telling you this because you need to understand something fundamental. The go-go years of retirement, the years where you can actually travel, hike mountains, start new projects, be fully present with people you love, those years have an expiration date that's much sooner than most people realize. So, here's what retirees who've done it right will tell you. The years between 60 and 65, maybe 68, those are precious. Those aren't years to postpone. Those aren't years to work through for just a little bit more, because you can't buy back those years, not with any amount of money. Think about it this way. If you're 55 right now and you've been told you need 5 more years of work to feel financially secure, what you're really saying is, I'm going to trade 5 years of good health, energy, and freedom for money I may or may not live long enough to fully enjoy. That's not always a bad trade, but you need to know what you're trading. The people who are happiest in retirement aren't necessarily the ones with the most money. They're the ones who figured out how to spend their go-go years doing things that mattered to them while their bodies could actually do those things. Now let's talk about money, because it does matter, but not in the way you think. When you're working, you have a mental model of retirement. You imagine yourself at home more, cooking meals, relaxing, spending less. So you run the numbers. I spend $60,000 a year now, but surely I'll spend $45,000 when I retire. Here's what actually happens. In your first 5 to 7 years of retirement, what researchers call the go-go years, you don't spend less, you spend differently, and often you spend more. Why? Because you finally have something you haven't had in decades: time. And time is expensive. You take that trip you've been promising yourself for 15 years, you visit your grandchildren across the country, you finally fix up the house, you go to lunch with friends, you join clubs, you try hobbies you never had bandwidth for, and all of that costs money. What researchers call the smile pattern of spending looks like this. Your expenses are high in the early years, the go-go years, then they dip in what's called the slow-go phase, usually mid-70s onward, when travel becomes harder and you naturally spend less. But then, and this is crucial, they spike again in the no-go years, when healthcare, assisted living, and medical costs take over. So when you're planning your retirement, you need to understand your real number, not the number you hope for, the number you'll actually spend. Before you retire, track your spending for at least 6 months. Then ask yourself, what will actually change? Some things will go down: your commute, work clothes, maybe some meals out because you're exhausted. But what will go up? Travel, entertainment, home maintenance you've been putting off, healthcare, hobbies? Then here's the part most people skip. Figure out what your life actually needs to feel fulfilling. Are you the person who's happy with modest travel and quiet weekends? Or do you need more stimulation, more experiences, more going out? Neither is wrong, but you need to know which one you are before you retire. Because here's what happens if you get this wrong. You retire thinking you'll be fine on $4,000 a month. 3 months in, you realize you're actually spending $6,000. Now what? You're either cutting your lifestyle drastically, which means your retirement doesn't look like you hoped, or you're watching your savings deplete faster than you planned. And that creates a level of stress that no amount of free time can fix. The people who retire well aren't necessarily the ones with the most money. They're the ones who did the homework. They knew their number. They weren't guessing. For the last 30 or 40 years, you've had a single job: accumulate, save more, invest more, watch it grow. The dopamine hit comes from the number in your account getting bigger. That's been your identity. And then one day, you retire. And suddenly, the game changes completely. Now your job is to distribute, to spend, to use what you've built. And if you're not careful, this creates a psychological crisis that nobody talks about. Some of you are going to feel guilty every time you spend money. You'll see the balance decrease, and it'll create anxiety. You might start restricting yourself unnecessarily, eating into your freedom because you can't shake the feeling that you should be saving more. Others will do the opposite. They'll overcorrect. They'll spend recklessly in the first few years, telling themselves, "We're retired, we deserve it," and then wake up at 72 realizing they've burned through too much too fast. The people who do this well aren't the ones with the most discipline. They're the ones who shift their identity. They move from "I am an accumulator" to "I am a thoughtful distributor of my resources." That's a psychological shift, and it takes intention. Here's what helps. Organize your money with clarity. This doesn't have to be complicated, but it should create psychological safety. Think of it this way: separate accounts for different purposes. One account for immediate spending, your checking; one for short-term emergencies, high-yield savings; one for tax-deferred growth, your retirement accounts; one for flexibility, your taxable brokerage. When your money is organized this way, you can see clearly, this account is for this season of life, that account is for that. It removes the anxiety. You're not watching your entire life savings decrease every time you go to lunch. You're simply moving money from the go-go years spending bucket to your checking account. The shift from saver to spender isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you've actually accomplished something. You did what you were supposed to do. Now, do the next thing. Enjoy it wisely. Here's something nobody warns you about, and I mean this genuinely. Retirement can be lonely if you're not intentional. For 40 years, you had built-in community. You had coworkers, you had meetings, you had a role, you had an identity that wasn't just about you, it was about your title, your position, your value at the company. And whether you loved your job or hated it, that structure was there. And then you walk away. Some of those coworkers will stay in your life. Most won't. That's just how it works. The bonds that held you together, shared stress, shared goals, proximity, those disappear. And if you haven't built something to replace that structure, that identity, that sense of contribution, you can find yourself adrift. The research on this is clear. People who retire without purpose, without community, without something they're building or contributing to, they struggle. They're more likely to experience depression. They decline faster. They don't live as long. So before you retire, you need to answer this question: who are you without your job title? And more importantly, what are you going to do that makes you feel like you're contributing, not just consuming? Because the difference between a person who retires and finds purpose and a person who retires into a void is the difference between thriving and declining. The people who've nailed this talk about retirement as a renaissance, not an ending, a rebirth, a chance to finally pursue the art, the learning, the contribution, the creation that you didn't have time for before. That reframe from ending to beginning changes everything. Let's talk about something that might sound strange coming from someone talking about retirement. Stop caring about impressing people. For the last 30 or 40 years, you've been playing a game. Some of you knew you were playing it, others didn't. But the game was show the world you're successful. Buy the right car, live in the right neighborhood, wear the right clothes, have the right things. It's the game of status. And maybe it served you, maybe it motivated you, Maybe it felt good. But here's what people who've actually made it to retirement will tell you. Once you get there, that game stops mattering completely. One retiree I've heard about was still driving the same Honda from 8 years ago. His neighbor was in a fancy new SUV. His coworker bought a Tesla. And he had this moment where he thought, do I care? Do I actually care what I'm driving? And the answer was no. He realized that for years, that car payment, that upgrade cycle, that need to have something new and impressive, it was just keeping him on the treadmill longer. Think about what you're working for in those last 5 years before retirement. You're working to pay for things that are supposed to signal to other people that you're successful. But here's the thing, those other people, they're mostly going to forget about you. They're going to stay at work, they're going to move on, and you're going to be sitting with yourself wondering why you traded 5 years of freedom for a car that didn't make you any happier. The people who retire well do something radical. They redefine what success looks like. Success becomes health. Success becomes having time. Success becomes deep friendships. Success becomes pursuing something you love. Success becomes freedom. And the moment you make that shift, you realize how much of your life was spent caring about the wrong things. So here's what I want you to consider. What are you still buying or maintaining to impress people? What status symbols are keeping you on the work treadmill? What would you let go of if you weren't worried about judgment? Because in retirement, you finally have the freedom to stop answering those questions. You finally get to ask, what do I actually want? Not what I think I'm supposed to want, not what will make people respect me, what actually brings me joy. That's the freedom that money can buy you, but only if you're willing to stop caring about the things that don't matter.
Now, I want to talk about something specific because it affects a lot of people and the consequences are real. The one more year trap. You're ready to retire, you've done the math, you have enough. But then something happens. A market downturn makes you nervous. A friend mentions they worked longer. Your advisor suggests that one more year of contributions could really shore things up. Or you're just not quite ready psychologically. So you tell yourself, just one more year. I'll retire next year instead. Here's what the research shows. That one more year of stress, of commuting, of meetings, of working in a job you've already checked out of mentally, it's not neutral. It actually ages you. It decreases your total lifespan. And I'm not being dramatic. Chronic stress does measurable damage. It affects your heart, your brain, your immune system. That 1 year of extra paychecks could literally cost you a year or more of healthy life. Think about it this way. You work that extra year to make an extra $100,000. You're 66 now instead of 65. But that year of stress has cost you in ways you can't see. And now you have fewer years of good health left to use that money in. So ask yourself this, honestly. Are you staying at work because you genuinely don't have enough? Or are you staying because you're afraid? Because there's a difference. If you don't have enough, that's legitimate. Work, build, save more. But if you have enough and you're staying because of fear or doubt, understand what that's actually costing you. The people who retire with the fewest regrets are the ones who said, I have enough, I'm ready, and they moved forward, even though there was uncertainty. If you're watching this and you're under 40, I want to say something directly to you. Start saving now. Not next year, not after the promotion, now. The biggest regret that retirees express almost universally is this: I wish I'd started earlier. It's not I wish I'd earned more. It's not I wish I'd worked harder. It's I wish I'd understood earlier that time and compound interest are my greatest assets. The money you invest at 25 has 30 or 40 years to grow. The money you invest at 40 only has 20 or 25 years. And mathematically, that difference is staggering. But more than that, it's psychological. If you start early, you're making the commitment to yourself that your future matters, and that commitment changes how you live. Even if you're starting late, if you're 45 or 50, start anyway. Starting at 45 is infinitely better than starting at 55. You can never have too much in retirement. Never. And here's something else. The money you save now isn't just about numbers. It's about freedom. Every dollar you don't spend on status symbols, on things you don't need, on impressing people, every one of those dollars is an extra day, an extra week, an extra year of freedom you're buying. I want to say something that might sound obvious, but it's the thing most people ignore until it's too late. Your health is your wealth. You can have $10 million in the bank, but if you're 65 with serious health problems, are you going to have a good retirement? Probably not. You're going to be managing illness instead of managing freedom. The people who are happiest in retirement took care of themselves before they got there. And I don't mean perfection. I don't mean obsession. I mean reasonable, consistent care. Move your body regularly, not intensely necessarily, just regularly. Walk, swim, do yoga, garden, anything that keeps you moving and flexible and strong. Your body needs to carry you through 30, 40, maybe even 50 years of retirement. Eat reasonably well. You can't eat like you're 25 forever, and if someone tells you they do, they're not being honest. But you can make choices that protect your health. That's not deprivation, that's wisdom. Get regular checkups. Catch problems early. Manage your stress, because stress will age you faster than almost anything else. Most importantly, start now. Not next month, not after the holidays, now. Because the choices you make at 55 affect how you feel at 65. And the choices you make at 65 affect whether you can do the things you dreamed about at 75. Your health isn't something you can buy back with money, but you can protect it with time and intention.
One more thing before we wrap up. You need people. I'm not talking about being social for the sake of it. I'm talking about having a circle, maybe not huge, but genuine, of people who understand you, who are going through what you're going through, who you can talk to when retirement doesn't feel like the pictures you imagined. Because here's the truth. Retirement can be isolating. You're no longer in daily contact with coworkers. You're no longer on a treadmill with built-in structure. If you're single, if your spouse is still working, if you're far from family, it can feel like you're navigating this alone. So be intentional. Join a group, in person or online, of people who are retired or retiring. Connect with friends who retired before you. They know the pitfalls. They can help you navigate. Find a community, whether that's a church, a volunteer organization, a club, a class. Find people who are doing the things you care about. And use your people. Bounce ideas off them. Share your doubts. Celebrate your wins. The people who thrive in retirement aren't the ones doing it alone. They're the ones who've built connection intentionally. So let me bring this all together with something important. Retirement isn't an ending. It's a renaissance. And I mean that literally. The Renaissance was a period of rebirth, of art, of science, of human potential breaking free from constraints. That's what retirement can be if you approach it right. You've spent decades in the accumulation phase. You've worked, you've sacrificed, you've delayed. And if you've done it right, you've earned something precious: time, freedom, and resources combined. Now it's time to do what humans do in a renaissance: create, explore, contribute, learn, grow, connect, pursue meaning. But here's what you need to understand. That renaissance doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you, one, know your real numbers before you retire. Not the number you hope for, the actual number you'll spend. Track it, face it, plan around it. 2, started saving as early as possible. If you're young, do it now. If you're starting late, do it anyway. 3, shifted your identity from I accumulate to I thoughtfully distribute. That psychological shift matters more than you think. 4, stop caring about impressing people. That freedom alone is worth more than money. 5, found purposeful activities, things that make you feel like you're contributing, learning, creating, not just filling time. 6, protect your health relentlessly, starting now. Your body is the vehicle for everything else. 7, built genuine community around you. People who understand, people who support, people who keep you connected. And 8, understood that your go-go years have an expiration date. You're younger now than you'll ever be again. Don't postpone the life you want. The people who are thriving in retirement aren't special. They're not geniuses with money. They're just people who faced the realities honestly, planned with intention, and then had the courage to actually step into a different way of living. You can do that. It's not mysterious. It's not complicated. It's just clear-eyed and intentional. So if you're approaching retirement, start now. Do the math, have the conversations, build the community, protect your health. And then, when you're ready, take the leap. And if you're already retired and you're figuring it out as you go, give yourself some grace. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is meaning. It's freedom. It's health. It's connection. This is your renaissance. Make it count. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, share it. If you have retirement advice that's helped you, leave it in the comments. I read them all, and I genuinely love to hear what's worked for you. And if you're planning your retirement or living it right now, subscribe. I'm documenting this entire journey, and there's more coming. Now, go do something with what you've heard, because the best time to plan your retirement was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. See you next time.